Hello, welcome to Learn by Loci, a podcast where we explore the science and technology that shape our world, our thinking, and our safety. I'm Joni McCurvey, Head of Communications at Loci, and with me as always is Samantha Matthews, Loci's founder and CEO. Hello! So last time we talked about the method of Loci, an ancient memorization technique that's still used today by world memory champions. And today we're going to get into the science behind the method of Loci, like diving into the neurological foundations of this connection between place and memory. And so to start us off, I'm thinking about that experience we all have where you walk into a room and then with purpose, and then you go, why am I here?
Yeah.
And then in order to remember, you walk back to the place you were standing when you decided to come in, like when you had the thought. And so my question for you right now is what's up with that?
What up with that?
Why does going back to the place where you thought something work?
Okay, so this is the coolest thing. Our brains have their own GPS system. And there was actually the Nobel Prize awarded in 2014 to scientists who discovered what we now call grid cells and place cells or space cells. And this makes up the brain's GPS. And so place cells, or they now call them space cells, fire to represent landmarks, like places the mountains or a building that's familiar or something like that. And then grid cells fire as we traverse terrain. So you could think about them like beep, beep, beeping along and firing a little network in our brains, making this sort of spatial map and connecting to these place cells. And these cells aren't really firing if we're not visually taking this information in, so sort of absorbing our surroundings. They're not firing very strong. And that's kind of a big deal because our location is a filing system for information. So everything we remember is tagged with our location data. It's the first line of code in any memory. We don't keep our memories in our hippocampus forever. It's like our hippocampus kind of where these place and grid cells sort of combine in combination with the entorhinal cortex. The hippocampus kind of orients us in place, space, and time, but then it distills these memories down and shoots them out to the outer cortex. And every time we recall a memory, we're recalling this little memory of a memory that was first made in the hippocampus. And you'll notice that, especially the further back you go, the most that you can remember are details about the environment. And really, the easiest way to say it is that the places we are the file folders for our memory. So that's why walking back to the place you thought of something often works.
Amazing. Yeah. And so that also makes me think that why it feels so significant to drive past your childhood home, right? If you're so much memory lives in that space.
Yeah, and it just floods in, right? And it's crazy how much is there that you don't even realize.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
And so the other fascinating detail to me about this part of our neurology is that our navigational abilities, so this creating of the spatial map that our brains do naturally, is a sort of use it or lose it skill, like a muscle. And so if you're not flexing that ability, that part of your brain gets weak. Is that what is that all about?
Totally. There's a famous neuroscientist, I can't remember his first name, Hebbian, but it's the wire together, neurons that fire together, wire together. So right. Basically, we know that this part of our brain actually grows because there's this landmark study done. You might have even heard of it. It's such a famous brain study, our listeners, I know you've heard of it, but you may have even heard of it. No, our listeners have probably heard of it. It's called the London Cabbie study. Yeah. And London cab drivers are required to know what's called the knowledge. And it's a memorization of all of the thousands of intricate streets in London. And this was set up in the 1800s.
Wow.
And like horse and buggy cabbie. There has been no change to this despite access to GPS for years. And the UK loves their tradition.
Sure do.
Bless them.
Jolly good.
Oh, jolly good. But it's crazy because in this study, and like, thank goodness, in a way that they have kept this tradition, because they were able to study these cab drivers' brains and see that the hippocampus grew by 8%. That's a huge amount. That's a lot of gray matter to grow. There was actually a London cabbie that was quite famous, Fred Houseago. He was he became famous because he won this famous television show called Masterminds. That was like the Jeopardy of its day. Like, only sort of tenured professors would be guests on it. And this London cabbie came on and won. And he became a radio presenter and everything. And still, I think he still drives cab, or he was driving cab up until a few years ago.
Wow.
But even this study was so important, because even now I think a new study has been going on with London cab drivers about how to predict and defend against dementia, because dementia is the disease that actually erodes the hippocampus. And so, like we really can grow this part of our brain if we familiarize ourselves with our surroundings, which is kind of amazing.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
I didn't actually, that's news to me about the dementia study, and that's a wonderful thing to if we knew more about it. It's exciting. And
they're doing like a long-term study with London cab drivers to see if there's any signs of early detection because of people who have this kind of intricate knowledge. And so sort of consistently across time, it really gives you this incredible data set, right? This consistent, incredible data set to continuously study and look at how it's giving back even now. I think it's incredible.
Mm-hmm. And it's fascinating too, because it's such a specific, like the geographic and spatial knowledge that they are focused on is so particular to this part of the brain. And yeah, that's a really fascinating. I'm excited to learn more about that. And so this brings me to another question though, because like, if we have this incredible capacity to remember, we can find our way, and the more places we know, and the more our brains grow, it seems, right? So like, my question now is, what is using GPS guidance on our phones doing to our brains? Yeah,
this is kind of Lokai's argument, right? Mm-hmm. We can optimize for our technology and like these devices in our hands that are going to tell us where to go, or we can optimize for the human brain, which actually has been like pretty much built as a supercomputer for navigating space, for holding on to memories, for processing complex thought. And like, you can't really process complex thought or hold two different ideals or ideas together in your head if you don't have those file folders, if you don't have a good reference of yourself in time and space. You can't really, you're living so in the moment and reacting to all this information coming in around you, that you quite literally are disorienting yourself from yourself, because, you know, our sense of self is grown from sensing the world, making memories. That's where time comes from. And if you're in psychosis, if you're, you know, in a coma, time isn't being recorded for you. And so I worry that this hyper state of reaction is making it so we don't form solid memories, that we're not building the types of pathways in our brain that create sort of aha moments or understanding, which is really required for us all to share space together. So, you know, I personally think that we should optimize for that supercomputer between our ears.
Oh, right on. Okay, well, me too. Gosh. So I guess the only question we have left right now is for the listener. Are you Team Brain? So, and if you are, follow us on Spotify, Apple, Google, or YouTube for, you know, more great insights and stories about the organic supercomputer between your ears.
The coolest one.
Yeah, the best, our favorite computer, if one can have a favorite. And and Learn by Lokai is our monthly podcast about making your world a better, safer place using the most powerful computer of all time, your brain. Thank you, Samantha, for being here. Great to see you.
Thanks, Johnny. Great to see you.
See you next time.
Bye.